Welcome to the Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Hello.
Hey.
Guten Tag.
Aloha.
Hola. Shalom.
Hello.
Namaste.
Ni hao.
Privet.
Hello.
Salut. Yassas.
Salve.
Ciao.
Bonjour. Our podcast talks about the latest trends in the worlds of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. And I'm so excited because this week with me, we have Jack O'Holleran from Skale Labs. He is the CEO. He is the number one guy in that company. So if anyone knows what's going on there and how it's going down, it's Jack. So in the first instance, hello, Jack.
Hello, Aviva. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited. I was going to say hi, Jack, but these cheesy kinds of like jokes, I'm sure I'd be sick of them. I mean, you can't, although I'm laughing right now. I should have said it because it made me smile anyway. So I just want to say again, thanks for coming on. Skale has been around for some time. So I know that Skale recently completed their mainnet with 78 million US dollars staked and onboarded for the first 10 dApps, which are decentralized applications that are going to be using your network. But we'll get more into that in just a moment. But when did Skale start, and how did you come up with this idea that, honey, as you're sipping your wine, looking at the sunset, I gotta make this thing called Skale? I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah, okay, great question. So I'll give the listeners here a little bit of the origin story. So I've been doing tech startups in Silicon Valley since 2005. The first one I did was I joined a company called Good Technology, which was a mobile computing and a cryptography secured messaging platform. And so the U.S. government, the White House, and U.S. Senate, almost every Fortune 500 company used this. And that was my first foray into startups. And we had a successful outcome. We were acquired by Motorola. And I, being able to join fairly early and see the progression, I just realized, hey, I want to go start a company. I became good friends with the founder of that company and then set a goal to go, start a company myself. And so started a company that was actually a digital currency platform back in 2008. And so it was NASA was one of the first customers that we were working with, and and it was way before crypto was a thing. And I mean, I think that's when Satoshi wrote the white paper. But you could actually buy resources internally with these digital currencies. And what it did is it was an effort in resource alignment and better resource allocation using an internal currency to really target scarcity and use game theory to have better ways of operating at big entities. And to make a long story short, that company ended up, after the market crashed in 2008, we ended up taking the analytics of that platform and built one of the world's largest machine learning, actually the leading machine learning and artificial intelligence platform for the life science industry. So almost every pharmaceutical company and biotech company in the world uses this today. And almost every single doctor is impacted by the analytics running on the back end of the system. So I kind of, started in more traditional startups doing enterprise software. But at some point along the way, I think it was 2013, I really started learning a lot about Bitcoin and understanding the power of open source software and community run software. And then when Ethereum launched, I was really just enamored with this whole, the concept and the power and what you could do as with this type of technology. And then I was starting another company after, at this point, I guess, my third company, and in 2017, and I actually wanted to start a decentralized application. I saw the power of community run applications and decentralized ownership and using blockchain. And that's when I met my co-founder, Stan Kladko, who's a PhD physicist and one of the world's top cryptographers, in my opinion, had been doing cryptography for over 20 years and had done a cryptography startup with Dan Bonnet and ran a NIST-certified cryptography lab for 7 years. And Stan had a lot of ideas, too, for applications. And we both realized that it would be impossible to do any of these without having some middleware that would make the application and the blockchain less expensive to use and faster. And so that was really the genesis where Stan and I said, hey, let's build this to solve the problem for ourselves. But we, having started a lot of companies and understanding like middleware and software ecosystems, we said, hey, let's not build the applications. Let's build this piece, and then we'll be able to bring this value to all the applications in the world. And that was really the genesis of Skale, was us trying to solve a problem for ourselves that, we knew then could be valuable for many other people like us. And here we are now. That was end of 2017, and we're fast forwarding many years later. And now I think as of today, there's over 1.8 billion staked in the Skale network. So it went up a lot from that early figure of 80 million when we first launched. Since so there's a lot of security in the network. Excited to talk and share more what this means. But yeah, that's the genesis story.
Wait a minute, how many are staked right now? Did you say?
There's 1.8 billion staked in the Skale network.
What exactly does Skale do? Because on your lovely website, this is something that we talk about all the time, and I'm a marketer, and so we look at these things as well, because of course this is the first thing. This is the coal face that everyone who is going to engage with you pretty much sees. If it's not this podcast, they're going to look at your website, and it says Elastic Blockchain Network. Build powerful Ethereum dApps. Run your dApp in a decentralized modular cloud built for real-world needs and configured for your requirements. Deploy with just a few lines of code. So it says here about building powerful Ethereum decentralized applications. Now, other companies have the same thing. So what makes Skale's ability for other developers to build powerful dApps, why is your solution better than theirs?
Let's take a non-technical route here first that I think will help capture what the technology does.
Absolutely.
So let's think of blockchains as highways, okay? And when you look at most blockchains, there's only one lane, okay? And every car needs to get onto that lane, all right? And you know what? These blockchains are slow, but they're really predictable. You get on the highway, you're going to get from point A to point B, and everybody shares the highway, and all of the nodes or computers running, supporting the blockchain are really kind of pieces of the infrastructure of the road, but they're not fast, and they add value with visibility and having a shared public ledger and all the other values blockchains have, but there's issues with them. Now you think of Skale, you could think of Skale as an infrastructure where there's a big lane that is Ethereum that every single car is sharing, and I think you could almost think of it as 15 lanes. Ethereum can do about 15 transactions per second, and they're just stacking up the cars. And during rush hour, guess what? It's really expensive because you have to pay a toll to use a toll based off of demand. And it just takes a long time. Things are slow. And then what Skale does is it actually gives every application or every car its own highway. And then there's the Ethereum highway, and then there could be hundreds and thousands of these other lanes. And every car can just, needs to enter on the big Ethereum highway, but then it can drive over to the Skale highway and then go 100 miles an hour, okay, at a very low cost. And so that's what Skale does, is it's a network of many, many blockchains. Instead of one blockchain like Ethereum, the Skale network can have thousands or tens of thousands of blockchains, and every application gets its own blockchain, or in this scenario or analogy, its own lane.
That is very significant in many ways, because this whole thing about congestion, which is very real. I mean, we talked about congestion on the Ethereum blockchain for the longest time, especially when CryptoKitties came out. So I'm just going to ask you this. You have all these, you're obviously using the Ethereum network, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So I guess the first thing I want to ask you is the Ethereum network, like I already alluded to with CryptoKitties, it became very slow and grinding when that was happening, with everyone getting on board with this whole new idea of NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. Then, of course, we went to DeFi, which 99.999% of DeFi applications are also built on the Ethereum network. There obviously needs to be some kind of solution like yours, which needs to be rolled out so other people can actually have faster transactionality, faster usage of the Ethereum protocol. And Scale can offer that. Is that not the case from what you're telling me?
That is very correct. So you could think of, again, so let's say CryptoKitties example. You've got CryptoKitties, and if you had an application like CryptoKitties, you build it for Ethereum, and then in just a few lines of code, you can connect it over to the Scale network. And then you have really your own private, or not private, your own version of Ethereum that your application can only use. And it's still a public open blockchain. It's not a private blockchain, but its designated use is only for the application that uses it. So CryptoKitties could have come over to the Scale network, run at 2,000 transactions per second, and had block times of a half a second. So they basically could have been doing like 4,000, or I guess, or each half a second, you have an opportunity for a smart contract or a transaction to close. And on Ethereum, it takes, 15 to 20 seconds, and you can only do about 15 per second. On Scale, you're doing thousands per second, and the block time's a half a second. And so with literally a few lines of code, and the Scale network is almost like a sibling network. It's like a sister or brother network to Ethereum, and it's even connected to Ethereum. The Ethereum network helps with the security of the Scale network and the orchestration of the Scale network. And I like to call it, it's almost like an Ethereum managed blockchain, where Ethereum helps manage the Scale network, but the Scale network is independent and powerful and fast, and it works in concert with Ethereum so that, we can have fast, easy to use, low cost applications.
Well, I guess my next question is, are you working with any NFT or any DeFi applications at this moment, or are you creating your own, considering the amount of your resources that could actually be used to save time and energy as compared if they were built on other solutions that are currently out there, or even on Ethereum's blockchain as it stands?
There are over 135 applications that have signed up in the Scale Innovator program. And many of these are DeFi and NFT and gaming and B2B and social networking and all these, unique different categories. For example, Minds.com, Minds.com, just announced their partnership with Scale earlier this week. They're going to be able to take advantage of all the functionality that I just talked about. And so on Scale, it's like, hey, we could launch a decentralized exchange. We could launch a version of Uniswap ourselves. But, we want to be focused on, the Scale community. We want to be focused on supporting applications, not competing with them, and give them the win and let them take advantage of this functionality, and we just stay focused on supporting them. I think very economically successful very quickly, because that's what's happening. You just see people just forking these code bases, and we could stand up a Uniswap, a Scale swap in like a day, reap the benefits. But I think it's better for the Scale community to be, facilitators and supporters of the Ethereum developers, not competitors to them.
So wait a minute, you mentioned something which wasn't in anything I've read anywhere. What did you say? The Scale Innovation Labs? What's going on there?
There's a program called the Scale Innovator Program. And what that is applications and companies, projects, organizations that want to run a blockchain application can apply to get in the program. They get early access to Scale chains. They can get grants from the foundation to have credits on Scale chains. They can get engineering support, support with architectural design, support leveraging the bridge between Scale and Ethereum. And so there's 135 applications signed up in that program. And then they're just kind of slowly being announced. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 announced every week. Yeah, so that's the Scale Innovator Program.
As you let people in, are you saying, okay, we want 35% DeFi, 10% NFT, 45% on whatever else. I mean, are you doing this like to a structure in your mind, or is it like first good idea come, first good idea served?
Yeah. So it's fully open and it's really contingent. So there was no reverse engineering to say, hey, let's try to get X% DeFi. It ended up kind of being about a third in this broad DeFi category and about a third gaming, just because I think the nature of how, application mix in the Ethereum developer ecosystem. And also, in an upcoming release, any single application, anybody can just show up and run a Scale chain. But the Scale Innovator program will still exist, and that's really kind of almost like an elite developer program that, based off of the quality of the teams and the engineers on those teams and their traction and their product market fit and their financing, then they're able to get special access and resources from the Scale community.
Okay, well, what's also interesting is that I know that you're looking to really develop or shape the next generation of the internet, known as Web3. And
Yep.
You're working, from what I understand, quite hard on this. So maybe we should first very quickly, I'll very, very quickly talk about Web 2.0. I think that might be maybe the way to start off. Ever since Bill Gates went on to something called the David Letterman Show in, I think it was 1991, and he was explaining what the internet was going to be, how he envisaged it, and how it was going to roll out. It's gone through, obviously, an evolution, and that evolution went from very basic functionality all the way to something which is now pretty much where we stand today, Web 2.0, which is where you have the social networks and mobile first and cloud-driven computing. And Web 3.0, from what I understand, and you will probably have to, if not correct me, elaborate on this, Jack, is when there are AI-driven services and decentralized data architecture such as blockchain, which of course is what this entire podcast revolves around, and everything to do with edge computing, infrastructure, and everything that you can imagine that's souped up. Am I on the right track there?
There's actually a nuance of Web3. So Web 2 encompasses all of the bells and whistles of technical innovation. Any component of Web 3 can exist in Web 2 if you're talking about edge computing and all of these technical advances. Web 3, what I like to say is the key difference is it's about ownership and control. In Web 3, the Web 3 is controlled and run and driven and governed by the users and the workers. Web 2 is controlled by primarily a handful of companies. And so if you think about it, our data when we're on the internet, and let's use the Brave browser as an example. I think it's a really good example. So if I use Brave, when I see ads, I actually get paid by the advertiser. When I'm on Google makes, and I'm on Chrome, and I'm getting ads through all of the mechanisms that come in through the browser, then Google makes about 120, $150 billion a year or something. Okay. And Web3, and, they're sharing and tracking every piece of data. Advertisers know when you say something in your house and, and you have like a listening device on, they know when you search for something, then you get retargeted on Instagram. They know when you like something on Instagram, then you get targeted on your other browser. And hey, like, I don't think that's absolutely horrible, but the point is that a handful of companies take all the value, and the users who own their own data don't get any value, and they don't have any say in how things are done. They don't have much visibility into how things are done. And Web3 basically flips the model on its head, and the users all are in control of their data. The companies are really open source companies that are run by the people. The servers that will run the Web3, and that's why we call Scale the Web3 cloud, will be servers run by people and governed by people who own a token. The Scale Labs, we don't run the Scale Network. Scale Labs help build it, but it's run and governed by the users. And Scale Labs doesn't run a single server. there's 46 different entities right now around the world running 153 nodes on the SKALE network that are, running the SKALE network. It's not one business that pays, Amazon or Google Cloud to run servers. So it's really a incentive flip. That's what Web3 is about. And it can only be enabled by trustless, decentralized systems in order to make that work.
Is it not the case that 3.0 adds this extra layer of AI in it, like not seen in today's innovations? Or is it the same amount of artificial intelligence? Because artificial intelligence, as we know, we're nowhere near what that next step in AI is, which is, of course, artificial general intelligence, or what's it called, thought of mind, or any of those things. We're still at the very basics. Does Web 3.0 have anything to do with advancing artificial intelligence to a much higher level than what we currently have now?
So there are a lot of definitions of Web3. The definition I follow is that if Google could incorporate it and Facebook and Apple, then it's still part of Web2. So you think about advanced AI, and I worked in machine learning and AI for almost a decade.
Right.
It is something that, hey, every big company is going to take advantage of, and you're going to just still see it in the same framework. It'll just be a more improved, faster, better, more intuitive experience on the internet because of AI and through applications. Now, if you think about Web3, to me, it's more about who has the power, who makes the money, and how are decisions made, and where does data live, and that's and AI is definitely going to be a big component of Web3, and I think and that's one of the reasons why in SKALE, every smart contract can actually be interact with machine learning algorithms and AI, neural network algorithms from TensorFlow, because we see that when you can have a more autonomous network that's smart, that can, use price prediction and image recognition and fraud detection, Web3 becomes more powerful. But I think you'll also see those same technologies help try to perpetuate Web2 as well. So yeah, that's my take on on those definitions. But I know there are, I think, a lot of definitions and variances on them for Web3.
Well, it's quite interesting because you mentioned, obviously this trustless network, which we currently are striving for in blockchain in general, right? And with that, especially when you're talking about the internet, one of the biggest problems is trust. And I think we're actually coming to a place in time where it is going to be the beginning of people not really trusting anything that they will be seeing on the internet, especially with, you have the rise of now deepfakes. And you mark my words, we're going to see deepfakes doing some really bad things. But that's another podcast, folks, which I'm not going to tease you about right now. It's not even so much about the trust that's involved in the system, but it's also about the value of the information. It has to be holding up the basic premise of a good society. And the thing is that, Web 3.0 is basically going to expand the scale and scope of both human and machine interactions far beyond what we can imagine today, right? It's obviously going to give us, I can imagine everything that blockchain promises with seamless payments, trusted data transfers, I can see all this. But when it comes to information and decentralizing information, what's your comment about, what's your response to what I just said about, information being out there and being honest and reliable and trustworthy?
It's a very, very complex equation in terms of how, and I think there's a few different horizons here, or just planes of where this matters. And one is, where does the data live? Okay, and who owns it and who's in control of it? And the other one is, how is it synthesized and understood amongst people viewing it? Okay. And I think the first piece is, if this data lives on servers run by Facebook, Twitter, Google, and not that these are I don't have some people absolutely hate those organizations. I don't hate them at all. I think they're doing the best they can do in the current environment. I just think society is ready for more progress and more innovation in terms of ownership that's really brought forth due to blockchain. And right now you could say, okay, this data lives on these servers run by these companies. These companies are responsible for everything on them and are in control of those servers. In a blockchain environment, the community is responsible, and the community can actually vote in a proof of stake network to remove things and remove applications, and you can do it through on-chain voting. And the values of the community, when a community has 2/3 of a value, that equals truth in blockchain. That's how consensus in a BFT environment works, and it could also be added to voting for certain mechanisms. And so when you think about the issues we have with fake news and fake identities with deep fakes and things happening on the internet is, one, where's the data and who's in control of that data, and who makes those decisions. And then the second piece is, once we know how things, there's like the synthesis. Okay, we've synthesized it, and we know this is a deep fake. Well, how do you remove that? And or is it not really a deep fake and it was just kind of a joke and somebody's taking it like out of control? Right now, like there's about probably like 10 people that get together at the world's largest companies. I know Facebook's trying to create a kind of outsource model where there's a community group that's in charge of this, because they know that them as the central operator, the more they're the central operator and they're kind of like, the king, queen of the court, the sooner Web3 eats them up, and the more liability they have. And what blockchains do is they just implement that same model that Facebook's trying to implement. But right now, the reality is it's just a very small group of people that are in control of a lot of people. And so, yeah, it's a complex dynamic. It's interesting, and I just think it's a huge category for growth, building up better systems. And one of the scenarios I give or analogies for Web3 is, if I would have told you in 2008 or 2006, hey, guess what? When you go on vacation, when you land at the airport, someone's going to pick you up in their car. It won't be a taxi. This person may, work at a restaurant, or they might be a school teacher, or they might just drive their own car all the time, and you're going to get charged through a mobile application back to your credit card for the ride. And when you get to the place, you're not going to end up at a hotel. You're going to end up at somebody's house who's on vacation. And that's called Airbnb. It's like, and it seems so normal now, but if you told someone in 2005 or 2006, they'd be like, you're crazy, right?
Absolutely.
And Web3 is kind of similar. It's like, oh, no, it's the job of the big companies to run and control our data. And they get paid for this. And then in 5 years, people are going to be like, oh, of course, why would I use that application when the company makes all the money? They sell all my data to everybody, and all these people track me and know everything about me. And now I'm in control of my data. I get paid when I give it out to advertisers, right? Like, it's just a very clear, and this goes beyond internet into like finance and other applications. We're really just talking about kind of Web3 social and like internet, but Web3 movement, I think, permeates into finance and centralized finance and other categories where community-owned assets, I think, are just going to frankly have more power and more network effects than centrally owned ones.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you in every way, shape, and form about that, which is pretty much what you said. You said the public is looking for the next evolution when you were talking about Facebook. I think the public is looking for the next evolution of the internet to kind of be more human-centric in many ways. Mm-hmm. So how is Skale then going to enter that Web 3.0? Are you coming out with something called Skale Web 3.0? Or what is the real product that is coming out of your desire to enter into this space?
So what you could think, to make Web3 work, we need a whole ecosystem of technology and infrastructure. And we need Web3 wallets with Web3, JS APIs. We need the Ethereum network. We need Web3 cloud, which can run application-specific blockchains. That's what Skale is. We need a whole set of technology. We need stable coins. We need advertising platforms. We need decentralized browsers. We need encryption products. And if you look into the ecosystem, all of these things are being built. And so Scale's goal is not to end up building the end product, but being a core piece of the infrastructure that enables the next version of the internet to come together, and the next version of finance, and the next version of how, humans coordinate and send money, and, have and programmable money and blockchain, and these basic principles really are, I think, the key ingredients to this next major change that will happen over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's already starting, but I think we're still 5 years away from every single person, Uber being decentralized, Twitter being decentralized, Facebook, Google. It just takes a while to impact real major change. And when it starts happening, you'll see it happen really, really fast. And we're seeing it in finance, we're seeing it in gaming, and we're starting to see it in the Web3 movement already as well.
Okay, I have one last question for you. And that is, what are you the one thing, you can only pick one thing, what is the one thing you are most excited about for the future in partnership with Scale? Is it Web 3.0? Is it DeFi? Is it gaming in general? NFTs? One thing. It can be something I didn't even name, but what's the one thing that you're most excited about?
You know what? I don't think it's fair to pick one market category, because
yes, so is.
Okay, so here's what I would say. If you asked, the team at Amazon when they were when they decided, hey, let's take AWS and bring it to the market, they didn't have a category. Every single type of company uses AWS because it's far down enough in the stack that it's valuable for almost every type of company. And Scale's the same way. If you have smart contracts on Ethereum, it doesn't matter if you're DeFi, gaming, B2B, social, NFT, etc. You all can use Scale. They all can use Scale equally. And so what I'd say is what I'm excited about is, what excites me is, I think this year is going to be the real breakout year in terms of end user adoption. And we already have applications that have massive amounts of users, like Audius and Minds and Uniswap and HCAPTCHA. There's 100 million people that interact with HCAPTCHA a day on the internet that connects into blockchain. And then that's one of the partners I'm talking about with Scale, and we have a kind of a cool bake-off happening with them in the upcoming future. But there's 100 million people interacting with the value of Ethereum right there. And so this is the year where we're going to start seeing these big breakout scenarios. And blockchain is really weird in that everybody knows about it and talks about it because they're talking about tokens. But when people use it, they're going to not know they're using it. And they're like, oh, this is running on a blockchain. Cool. That's why I have all these values, right? So we're getting really close. That's what I'm excited about.
Okay, well, I'm laughing here at you because you took a really you were like, nope, I don't want to offend anyone. I'm going to take the most vanilla route out of here. You mentioned
I tried to put a little spin on it, though, right?
You're not fooling me, man. I don't know who you think you're talking to, but I'm not green. On that note, I would like to thank you very much, Jack, for coming on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk. I really mean it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, hey, it's been fun, and I appreciate your energy and enthusiasm and really great questions, and it was really fun talking to you.
Hey, thanks so much. I'd like to thank all of our listeners for tuning in this week to Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Please do not forget to tell your friends and family about Crypto and Blockchain Talk, and the full library, or I should say the full listing of podcasting platforms are listed on our website, cryptoandblockchaintalk.com. On top of that, you can listen to all of these beautiful podcasts, as well as some music and breaking news, on our sister radio station, Crypto 24 Radio. That's Crypto 24 Radio. Now, of course, you can also get in touch with us through the usual social media platforms of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, but we love to hear from you directly. That's our favorite medium of actually communicating with you. So to email us, please email us at education@savvy digital, that's SAVII digital, savvydigital.com. Again, savvydigital.com. Thank you again for tuning in. We know you have a huge choice when it comes to listening to these podcasts on crypto and blockchain, so we really appreciate it when you choose us. Again, please be safe, take care, and goodbye for now.